Fox's alert leading Republicans say they will refer 24 individuals for criminal review. This is both ends of Pennsylvania Avenue in a high state of anticipation. Want to bring in our headliner. The Mueller report's out in 24 hours. Trey Gowdy is here now, former Republican congressman from South Carolina, Fox News contributor. Thank you for coming back. It's good to see you.
Good morning, Congressman.
Yes, sir.
And I hope life on the other side is good and grand. What do we need to understand about what Devin Nunes is up to with these 24 referrals?
Well, I think you need to ask yourself what's happened with the other referrals Congress has made. I think you need to ask yourself, why is Congress in the business of referring crime? We don't refer bank robberies. We don't refer homicides. I've never been a big fan of referrals. I like Devin a lot, but I've never been a big fan of referrals, except in this one limited instance. If the crime is lying to Congress, then one of the elements of that crime is the materiality of the lie, of the false statement. So if Congress wants to say, yeah, this was a really material question we asked and the witness lied about it, that's fine. But what other category of crime do you rely on Congress to refer to law enforcement? I can't think of one.
And obviously the big question here, and what you're hearing from the Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Lindsey Graham in this letter, is why this mid-year exam, why the investigation concluded without apparently accessing classified information. What more can you tell us about that, Congressman?
That's a huge deal, and any of us who are aware of what Lindsey is talking about realize it is a huge deal. Michael Horowitz, the Inspector General, alluded to it. We had a classified briefing on a bipartisan basis, and everyone in the room, Republican and Democrat, was very interested in this body of information, this body of evidence that, to the best of our knowledge, no one has accessed. So I like Chris Wray. I like Bill Barr, but at some point they're going to need to explain to the chairman of Senate Judiciary, we've looked at the information, we processed it, we've made referrals, we've done whatever you need to do. But to my knowledge, Sandra, no one has accessed this information that all of us consider to be vitally important.
So why would that be? Is it a general lack of curiosity, or is it something else?
I think it's incredibly classified. I mean, I think it is classified at the highest levels. I mean, stop and think. Michael Horowitz couldn't access it. He's the Inspector General who wrote the definitive accounting of the Clinton email investigation, but even he couldn't access this information. It's held in the possession of a really small, discrete number of people, but Chris Wray is on that list. I personally think that information is going to inform my fellow citizens that the Russian threat was far more than just a threat against the Democrats. It was a threat to our republic. So for that reason, for a unifying reason, I think the information, to the extent it can be, should be released without jeopardizing relationships with allies.
All right, tomorrow morning is a big day, Congressman. What are your expectations for the release of the Mueller report with redactions? There's going to be a ton of reaction to this. Will it shed new light on this investigation?
I don't think so, Sandra. And I spent a lot of time in courtrooms. There's a jury that's impartial, that hasn't made up its mind. There's a judge that's fair. You don't have any of that in this fact pattern. I'll bet you can't find a single person tomorrow that will tell you his or her opinion has changed on President Trump or on the House Democrats. This is going to be an evidentiary summary without a verdict. I never had a trial where there wasn't evidence on both sides. But at some point, someone has to say the more credible evidence is on this side. And that has to be a jury that hasn't already made up its mind. Who in this country has not already made up its mind? I can't find anyone. So tomorrow's going to do nothing except validate whatever your previously held conviction is, which is why I'm not a fan of releasing the report.
Just come back to Russia then. I don't know how much is contained therein, and we'll wait to see what happens there. You told me 2 weeks ago that we only know 50% of what Russia tried to do in 2016. So what's the other half?
I alluded to it, and what Lindsey is interested in this classified information that apparently no one's been able to access, may be the other 50%, and quite frankly, Bill, it may be more than 50%. I think when this final accounting is rendered, my fellow citizens are going to see that Russia didn't just attack Clinton and the DNC and Podesta. They attacked this country, and the best evidence of that I think is the pervasiveness of what they tried to do. It wasn't just Democrats. It was Republicans. It was groups that have nothing to do with politics. And when that story is told, I think people are going to view this as an American issue and not a Republican versus Democrat issue. But until that information is shared, right now they just think that you either like Trump or you don't like Trump. You either like the House Democrats or you don't. It's not an American issue. It's a partisan issue. That can change when this information is processed. And how the Senate Judiciary Chairman can't access it is befuddling to me. Michael Horowitz couldn't access it. So if Chris Wray has it, and I like Chris, I think Chris is doing a good job, but he needs to make a compelling case for why he cannot share it, or he needs to go tell us the full extent of what Russia did to us in 2016.
Congressman, what can you tell us about how you're going to receive the report tomorrow? Obviously, a lot of members of Congress away ahead of the holiday. What do you know on that front?
Well, I'm going to receive it the same way you receive it. I'm going to wait at a computer and read it, and I'm going to read it to the extent I can, wearing my old hat as a prosecutor. But keep in mind, Senator, there's evidence. I mean, you can have one person say the light was red and 100 say the light was green. You're welcome to believe the one. I think you're crazy to do it. I don't think a jury would agree with you. But it's going to be an evidentiary summary. And if you don't like Trump, you're going to seize on something. I mean, think about Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon said there's not any chance in the world Donald Trump Jr. didn't walk Natalia Veselnitskaya up to see Donald. Now, he wasn't there. He doesn't have a damn clue what happened, but that doesn't keep him from saying it. So someone's going to seize on something they consider to be evidence, and they're going to use that to extrapolate and try to reach a conclusion. That's why you need a jury that's impartial, and we don't have that in the country. So I have low expectations. It's going to do nothing except further entrench people as to where they are today with their positions.
Thank you for coming back, sir. Looks like a good day in Greenville,
Yes,
South
sir.
Carolina. Enjoy it down there, okay? Trey Gowdy, we'll see you in New York.
Thank you, Congressman.
The White House taking on the issue of anti-Semitism by inviting Jewish leaders to the White House. And last night, they were all there gathering together. How did it go? Our next guest was actually there.
That's right, Ainsley. Former Trump campaign advisor board member Jeff Balaban is the founder of Jexodus, a movement urging Jewish people not to vote Democrat. He joins us right now from our nation's capital with an inside look. Jeff, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So why the meeting at the White House?
Well, first of all, I just want to make a slight correction. Jexodus is not about urging Jews not to vote Democrat. It's actually urging the major political parties, and these days the Democrats seem to have the bigger problem, to distance themselves from rising anti-Semitism, because anti-Semitism is being mainstreamed, unfortunately, in our political process, and mostly by people like Ilhan Omar, etc. The Democrats can't seem to push it back. Yesterday's event wasn't really about that, but it was certainly the backdrop to the feelings of what's happening in this festival of Passover that's coming up on Friday night, which is the Festival of Freedom. And we say in the Haggadah, in the book that we've read for thousands of years, we say that in every generation they rise, meaning our enemies, the enemies of the Jews rise up against us to try and destroy us, and God saves us. And that was on everyone's mind. I mean, it's the best of times and the worst of times right now if you're Jewish in America and around the world. It's the best of times thanks to Donald Trump. And it was a big celebration about how extraordinarily pro-Israel and pro-Jewish this president has been, and how he's really fighting. He's taken more leadership in the war on anti-Semitism around the world than any leader in history.
Yeah, I mean, he withdrew from the Iran deal. He moved the embassy. He recognized Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights. Compare this president to past presidents and how he is helping Israel.
Well, I'm not sure if this was an off-the-record meeting in terms of details, but I will say that one thing that was under discussion was how what this president's done in the last 12 months alone. Someone was recounting the extraordinary steps he's taken for Israel in the last 12 months alone, and it's potentially more than it's happened literally in 70 years since the founding of that state. And there was discussion about that because there's no question that in America and around the world, people look to how the state of Israel is treated by the most powerful country in the world, by America, with the largest Jewish community outside Israel, to take their cues as to how to react to Israel. And this president has been extraordinary.
Jeff, let us ask you about this. I remember it was in the last month or so, there was this, it sounded like the House was going to write up a resolution condemning anti-Semitism after a freshman member of Congress had made a number of comments. And then eventually, because there was such an outcry from the political left, they decided to make it broader about hatred of all sorts. Nancy Pelosi was rejecting the taint of anti-Semitism within her party. Jeff, listen to this and then your reaction.
I think the president is bankrupt of any ideas because we are not. We have no taint of that in the Democratic Party, and just because they want to accuse somebody of that doesn't mean that we take that bait.
What do you think about that?
Well, I don't think anybody's accusing Nancy Pelosi of being anti-Semitic, but the fact is that that party is not doing a good job of condemning anti-Semitism for what it is. Instead, as you pointed out, they acknowledged, because no one could really deny it, how overtly predatory and anti-Semitic Ilhan Omar has been. And it's not just Ilhan Omar, she's just leading the pack. And they all said it, from the right to the left. And the Democratic Party acknowledged it. And they said they were going to fight it, and then they didn't. They instead passed a watered-down resolution which generically includes all forms of hate, which are obviously bad. But let's face it, what's happening here is a focus on Jews. And people don't seem to know this, because I've said this on air, I've said this on Fox, and people deny it. But the FBI statistics are very clear. There is no minority group in America that's more targeted for hate crimes based on religion than Jews, by far. We're less than 2% of the population, and yet we make up about 60% of the hate crimes are against Jews in this country. And it's on the rise.
Wow. No idea.
How do we change that?
Well, I think people need to be aware of this, and people need to stop excusing, including the Democrats, need to stop excusing anti-Semitism by saying, well, Ilhan Omar doesn't know what she's talking about, or she's not aware, and there are a lot of problems. This itself is a major problem that needs to be focused on directly. Thank God the president is.
Jeff, thank you for talking about it and coming on with us this morning.